All right, so today we are digging into a wild story about the hidden engine that was powering the entire AI revolution. And more importantly, how that engine just seized up almost overnight.
So let's just ask the big question right up front. What is really, truly fueling this AI explosion? Because, a lot of research shows it's not just about clever code or a bunch of super fast computer chips. The real rocket fuel, the thing that makes all of this possible, is this enormous, mostly invisible pipeline of money. And it's flowing from a very, very specific part of the world. And to really get what's happening, you first have to understand this fascinating concept in global finance. It's the thing that directly connects the world's richest oil fields to Silicon Valley's most futuristic laboratories. Okay, so this right here is the secret sauce, the petrodollar cycle. It sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. The entire world buys oil using US dollars. This means Gulf nations end up with mountains, literally trillions of dollars. And they can't just stuff that cash under a mattress, right? They have to put it back out into the world. They have to rotate that capital across the globe, looking for the next big thing to invest in. This system basically turns them into the world's #1 hub for US dollars.
And for a while, that next big thing was definitely AI. I mean, check out this number. Studies show that Gulf sovereign wealth funds pumped a staggering $66 billion directly into AI. And that was just in 2025 alone. They were literally taking the profits from the world's oil and recycling it into the world's brainpower.
That led one analyst to say this, which I think is just perfect. The venture fund of last resort. And that's exactly what the Gulf became for Silicon Valley. See, they were the only place on the planet with enough patient capital. That's money that can be invested for like a decade or more without anyone screaming for immediate profits. It's the kind of money you need to fund the craziest, most ambitious projects on Earth. And believe me, the ambition here was not small. We are not talking about building a slightly better chatbot. No way. The goal, the absolute moonshot funded by this whole pipeline, was to build the first true artificial general intelligence. We're talking about funding the next chapter of human history. And what was the price tag for that dream? Well, the estimated cost for just the single biggest project to get there was $500 billion. I mean, that's a number so huge it's almost funny to traditional investors. They'd run screaming.
Which brings us to this, the project that so perfectly illustrates the sheer scale of this whole thing. It was called Stargate. It was this massive partnership between OpenAI, Microsoft, and the UAE, all designed to build these, digital cathedrals of computing power, data centers so vast they were meant to literally give birth to an AGI. But then it all changed. It felt like it happened overnight. That huge financial bridge, the one connecting the deserts of the Gulf to the labs of Silicon Valley, suddenly burst into flames.
It all happened in February 2026. The entire region went from being a global construction site to an active combat zone. And when those drone strikes started hitting critical oil refineries and energy hubs, that was the game changer. It triggered a financial pivot that was both incredibly fast and incredibly dramatic. A senior official was quoted saying this, and it really captures the entire mood shift perfectly. When your energy infrastructure is under fire, you stop funding Silicon Valley and start funding missile defense. I mean, what else is there to say? Suddenly, the #1 priority wasn't some long-term tech bet anymore. It was about survival, right here, right now.
And the fallout was immediate. All of this money, huge sums that were already promised, was suddenly frozen. It became a pencils-down moment for everyone. These nations started using force majeure clauses, which are basically these legal act of God triggers, to just pause all of their massive investment plans.
And this is where the story gets really interesting, because this huge, sudden black hole of cash, it hit big tech at the absolute worst possible moment you could imagine. This right here shows you exactly why that Gulf money was so critical. Look, Wall Street investors are famously impatient, right? They want profits and they want them yesterday. But building something like AGI means you have to burn through billions and billions of dollars for years before you see a single dime of profit. That patient capital from the Gulf was the bridge that let big tech soar over that gap, completely bypassing their skeptical shareholders. And just look at these budgets. These were the spending plans. We're talking hundreds of billions in capital expenditures, or CAPEX. All of these plans were made with one key assumption, that the money from the Gulf would just keep on flowing. So when it stopped, These companies slammed headfirst into what everyone is now calling the CAPEX Wall. And the impact wasn't just some numbers on a spreadsheet. The actual physical construction of our digital future just ground to a halt. Meta's plans for new submarine cables, the ones that carry all our data, stopped. The massive Stargate project, international workers fled. And even NVIDIA, who had been making chips as fast as they could, suddenly had to worry that their biggest customers might cancel billions in orders. So this all leads us to the final and maybe most critical takeaway from this whole affair. It's what's being called a sovereign pivot, and it has consequences for the entire world. What we are witnessing is really the end of that global AI bridge. For the foreseeable future, those giant sovereign wealth funds are turning inward. They're taking all that capital and redirecting it to protect their own borders and rebuild their own infrastructure. Simply put, the world's biggest wallet is, for now at least, closed for business. Which means the defining question for AI in 2026 and beyond isn't just a technical one anymore. It's not just, can we build it? The real question is a financial one. Who is left to pay for it? That bridge, the one that lets Silicon Valley basically ignore the normal rules of investment, is now a pile of ashes. And because of that, the whole era of big AI is facing its first real and maybe its deepest existential crisis.